Hello. Hi. Happy Tuesday demo day. It's just remembered I have a mint in my mouth, which I should get rid of before I start talking to you guys. Hello, Julie. Nice to see you. And Shakisha, nice to see you too. I'm so grateful when familiar names and people that have been watching me demo now for the last couple of years doing live streams. Hello, Sherry. I'm so grateful for when you guys pop in. It's really great. It's like seeing friends, you know. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. Hello, Sue. And if anybody's watching on YouTube, please do make a comment. I'm not, we've only recently been streaming also. I am cold, Norma. Norma's watching on YouTube, and it is cold. I might demo with my little gloves on. So thank you, Norma, for popping in, because I was just hoping that someone watching on YouTube would do that, just so we know that everything's streaming there okay. So we have some, I hope, I should probably take my gloves off. They look a little grubby or something. We love these earrings. They are made with our Sacred Heart buttons and an older charm we call our Milagro Heart. The Sacred Heart charm is brand new. It is something that we launched, that one of the designs we created when we launched our Keep the Faith collection. Anita is saying hello from Johannesburg, South Africa. Wow. Hi, Anita. I don't even have any idea what time it would be there. So let me pop the inspiration page link into the comments. So you guys, that's also up in the description of the demonstration today. And I'm also going to pop the link to the collection, which is the group of parts that we just launched in February. And so far, I think people are really, really loving this collection. So anyway, this particular design, the Sacred Heart button earrings, I had a whole bunch of designs going on. And, we're a small company, so everything's a group effort. So I do the bulk of the jewelry designs for when we are promoting a new collection of parts. But everybody always has ideas. And at one point, Kirsten said, I want to see something with an earring with the Sacred Heart button and red. And I said, okay. And these just came together so easily. And they're really not complicated. They are a button. They're connected at the back with just a jump ring and the wire hoop. And they're very easy to make. So, Anita says it's 9 p.m. in South Africa. So they're like, and I'm assuming it's the same day, Anita. So you guys are, my goodness, 10 hours ahead of us. And Emily's here from sunny Alabama. I'm pretty sure it's always sunny there. So I'm going to switch my camera so we can get started on the demo. And I used some what I thought were very lovely little pony beads. Oh, that's something I meant to kind of look up. You hear people, call different beads, names of different beads all the time in jewelry making. And you're always like, well, what kind of bead is that? A pony bead is actually just a small kind of almost a rondelle shaped barrel bead. Usually they have somewhat large holes here. Let's see. And then they're also known as crow beads, although there may be some size difference between what they call a pony bead and what they call a crow bead. And they're check glass typically, and they're just kind of a very traditional little bead. You may frequently find Native American beading suppliers and or projects using crow and pony beads. They're very popular with that kind of work. So I had these in the stash, and they're like the perfect, vivid, but translucent, so it had some light, perfect beads. And this is all I have left. I set up a make and take for the staff a couple of weeks ago, and people must have loved these beads because when I went to set up for my demo yesterday, I'm like, oh, darn, I'm out of those beads. Not enough to make a pair of earrings anyway. So I had to start looking for alternatives, and that you surely yes, Norma pony beads. And if you just do a web search for pony beads or crow beads, you will certainly get more detail and more history than I can give you here. But these were a 6 millimeter pony bead or crow bead. And as I said, I ran out. They were great for the project that we photographed. So I just started looking for some alternatives. And the first thing I went to was I had these real pretty crystal rondelle beads, and they are also about 6 millimeters. So I thought, okay, those might work good. Whatever beads you choose for this type of project, you just want to make sure we're going to be using a 22 gauge wire. You could also use 20 gauge. You want to make sure your holes are big enough for your beads. But I really kind of went down the rabbit hole while I was searching for different beads. So I had a lot of those crystal rondelles in some various colors. So I thought those would make a nice variation. I also had some, these are just a check glass rondelle that is the same, about 6 millimeter faceted rondelle. And it's a nice opaque red. So I thought that might be nice. And then I also had some faceted check glass pony beads, and I have those in several colors. So those might be fun too. So it's funny that when I'm looking at the stream, the color is just not nearly as vivid. The way it's showing up is not nearly as vivid as the colors looking at the beads in person. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that with my color. Maybe I can adapt my color a little bit, make it warm up a little bit. I can try. I don't know if it's doing much. Anyway, the color is very vivid. So these are also about the same size as those original ones that I used. So they would make a perfect substitution. The difference with these ones is they do have that little bit of faceting, which is very pretty. Will catch some light. So those could be good. And, Kirsten's idea with the original pair was red, but that doesn't mean we have to stick with red. So I actually would like to start with a silver pair. And I think I'm going to start with, oh, goodness. It's time for decision making, guys. I pulled all these colors out, but I didn't know for sure what I was going to do. And I'm thinking silver and blue is what I actually would like to do. I'm going to try and do 2 pair of these today. I don't think that I'll get them done, not necessarily during the live, but at least throughout the day. And I'm actually going to donate these. The 2 pair that I make today are going to be donated to a local cause that's near and dear to my heart. And they're having a fundraising event tonight. So I'm going to donate them to that fundraiser. So our demo's for a good cause today. So what you do need, we're talking about the beads, but let's talk about what else you need for the project. You need some ear wires, of course. You need 2 buttons. And of course, in this case, we're using the Sacred Heart buttons. 2 Milagro Heart charms. 36 spacer beads. So I've got, oh, that's going to be messy. I've got a mix of beads in there. Let me not use that container. The little beads, spacer beads I'm going to use are these 3 millimeter discs. And then I also need a more decorative spacer bead. So that's where I'm going to pull out, you know what? That's too difficult. Let me just pull out the container that has them all by themselves. That's going to be much easier for me, I think. But doesn't this look inviting? This whole little dish, it's got little spacer beads and little bead caps, and it looks kind of delicious, huh? Okay, so what else do we need? We need a couple of our largest round jump rings. Get these off to the side so I have a little workspace. A couple of our large 8mm, that's the internal ID. These are actually about 10mm on the outside, but the inside dimension is 8mm. And that's how they're described on our website. So if you go looking at our jump rings, and it's listed on the project sheet which jump rings I use, so that makes it better. And then we also need some 20 gauge, whoops. Oh, okay. So when I originally wrote the instructions, I used, it looks like in the original pair, I used a 20 gauge craft wire. At some point, which is an option, that's what I used in the original design. Craft wire, as you know, can be quite soft. So if you're working with the craft wire, you either want to, once you make your hoop, see if you can maybe cushion it and hammer it lightly to harden it a little bit. So maybe it'll hold its shape well. These earrings have been, they've traveled, they've been handled a lot. The wires, gotten a little bit work hardened. So it holds it, they hold their shape just fine. Every once in a while I have to kind of adjust them a little bit. But at some point in my work with this design, I decided that a German style wire would be better. The German style wire is Beadalon makes this particular one. I don't know if anybody else, if you can find any other German style wire. It is basically a craft wire that is harder. It's not quite half hard, but it is a medium temper craft wire. So it's harder than the regular craft wires, which are usually plated copper. So they can be quite soft. The German style wire, a little bit harder. And so I think I can get away with using 22 gauge. So that's what I'm going to do. I think on the instruction page and on the downloadable sheet, it says 20 gauge, but just know that if you're using the German style, you can probably use the 22 gauge and be okay. So do I have an end here I can get to, or do I need to cut those off? So that's what you need for these. The first thing we're going to do is, if I follow my instructions, that is, the first thing I'm going to do is attach the smallest. I also have, at some point, we were talking about the jump rings and I talked about the big ones, but you also need some of our small ovals. And I'm going to go ahead and attach a jump ring to that charm. And I want to make sure that there's not too much clutter in underneath my hands, guys. That gets hard to see what I'm doing when there's a lot of clutter. So let me move stuff out of the way a little bit. And hopefully that's not too bad. And as always, guys, please ask questions or all the questions and comments you want in the comments. I may or may not catch them while we're live, but if I don't, I will try and catch them later. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, was put the jump ring on the little charm. Next thing I'm going to do is cut about 4 inches of craft wire. It doesn't have to be exact, but about 4 inches. And what I'm going to do next is just kind of curve this into a little round. This round is about 1.25 inches, and I just happen to have a little funny chunk of wood. I don't really know what it's from, but it makes a great round. It makes a great round mandrel. And I've had it in my little tool drawer for years. I don't even know where it came from, but it makes a great little mandrel. So you can use kind of anything small and round that you might have on hand to use as a mandrel for this, or you can just, shape it by hand, which is also an option, but it's nice to have a little mandrel. So I've got a little round. It doesn't have to be the exact size because as I'm working with it, I'll adjust it. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to cut another little piece. And I'm also going to cut a little piece of 22 gauge craft wire, just so you can see kind of the difference in how this is the craft wire, and it's just very, very, very flexible. You know, craft wire is awesome for wire wrapping. You know, it's very, very, very soft. The German style half medium temper is just a little firmer. It's not quite. You could still do wire wrapping with it, and it would actually hold its shape super well, but it's quite a bit firmer than the craft wire. But anyway, as I continue the demo, I'll adjust the size of the circle as I need to. But for now, I've got a nice little approximately 1¼ inch round curve in this wire. And then what I want to do is just take my round nose pliers and kind of make a little hook. Just got a little hook. Maybe it's about 1/8 of an inch long. And what's going to happen with that is it's going to attach to the button shank. Just like that. And then I can pinch that down, but I do not want to pinch this hard. There needs to be it needs to be able to move. So don't pinch it down hard, just pinch it down lightly. And then the next thing I need to do is kind of collect my beads that I'm going to be stringing. For one pair of earrings, you need 36 of the little spacers. These are 3mm discs, and you need 16 of a larger spacer bead. And there's any of our little 4mm spacer bead, or even some larger spacer beads would work for this. Right now I'm using the little beaded daisy spacer, 4mm daisy spacer. So I've got this strung on there, and the next thing I'm going to do is just start stringing some beads. I started with this one. I started with the crow bead first, and you could also, of course, start with some spacers, but just starting with the crow bead will work just fine. And then I'm going to start alternating small 3mm disc spacer, daisy spacer, disc spacer, and then another crow bead. And I'm going to do that how many times? One. I can count. I can. Let's see. 1, 2, 3 more times. Robin is saying it's good that she caught this tutorial. I'm glad, Robin. It is a really fun design. And I pulled out, which I won't distract us with it till later, but I did pull out some kind of different themed buttons and charms because, you know, you could use this pattern with different button and charm themes. So I kind of I pulled some of that out and set them aside, and maybe we'll look at that when we're finished with putting the earrings together. So I'm liking the blue. You know, the red was the thing when we did the original pair. Kirsten really wanted to see red and gold. But you know, I think it's okay to do different color combinations. One more, I think. Because there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the pony beads on each side of the circle. And you could also adjust the size of your hoop. It wouldn't need to be, it could be bigger, it could be smaller. Oops, I started duplicating my spacer beads instead of adding that last pony bead. All right, so here's the first side of the hoop. I've got a sequence of 5 of the pony beads and the spacer repetitions, and I'm adding more spacers, but I'm going to skip that daisy spacer in between the disc because that's where the jump ring for the charm is going to go. And so that takes the place of that daisy spacer in the center, at the bottom center of the design. All right, and then we start repeating the whole sequence for the other side of the hoop. Robin is saying she loves these faceted pony beads. And these are from, if you search for them, you want to do a search like wherever your favorite shopping, your bead sources are. You want to do a search for 6 by 4 millimeter pony or crow bead. And these particular ones are made by their Czech glass, and they're, I should say, sold by a company called Beadmaster. Beadmaster is a wholesale jewelry supply company. So you'd have to search to see who's got these retail if you're shopping retail. But if you're a wholesale shopper, you will find them at Beadmaster. And if you guys have another link to share, oops, that's not what I wanted. The trick with working with links is that sometimes you try to copy something and it goes to the page you're trying to share instead. Oops, that can be hid. All right, so I just put a link to our store locator in the comments, and Beadmaster's in there. So if you're, whoops, losing my beads. If you're a wholesale shopper, you can check them out. They have been in business for a long time. We've done business with them for a long time. They're a good company. I think they're in New Jersey. All right, so where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4. Last pony bead. And that's my entire hoop of beads. So now what I want to do is I don't want to make my second hook. I'm going to attach this side to the button shank as well, but I don't want to make my hook right there. I want to make sure that this, I can go ahead and thread it through there, and that will help me. I've just threaded that second piece of wire through the shank, trying to get a grip on it. Come on. This is the fussy part of the design. Might need to use my pliers. So I want to get a grip on that other side and kind of pull the circle to the size that I want it. And again, I don't want to pull it so the beads are tight up against the button. I want to leave a little bit of space. If you look at this one, you can see that I've left enough little space so that the button will sit down, will nest in right in between the beads at the top of the hoop. So that's what I'm aiming for. So if I can get a grip on that, kind of pull it around until I have kind of enough space between them for that button to nestle in there. Then I'm just going to bring that wire back to make that second hook. And again, I don't want this to be a tight hook. I don't want it to crimp down on there. I just want it to be enough of a hook to hold everything in place. And I want to, before I trim that, I want to check it and make sure it's kind of the size and looking good. I think that these beads might be ever so slightly thicker than these first ones because my hoop feels a little bit bigger, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. Again, you could adjust your beads and your hoop. You can just adjust the size of your hoop according to the beads you decide to use and how big you're going to make, or how big they end up being and how many you are going to use. So that looks okay to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim the wire off of that second hook. and tuck it down. Again, I don't want it tight. I just want to tuck it down so that everything will stay put. And that's it for the construction of the hoop. And then to finish the design, all you need to do is take that large 8mm ID jump ring and thread it through the shank right above the wire where the wire hoops or the wire hooks are. I'm going to thread that right above there and attach an ear wire. And I don't have my ear wires handy. Hold on. Little details. The ear wires are so crucial, but so often I forget to get them out before I start a project. Sherry, that's such that Norma. When I go over and I look at the comments, there's always so many that I want to respond to. I get a little distracted. Norma is saying she loves the cobalt blue, so calming, and I just agree 100% with that. I love a cobalt blue. So I've got that jump ring in that large jump ring opened, and I just threaded my ear wire on, and I'm going to close up that jump ring. And you saw how I kind of went back and forth a few times. That's just to work harden the jump ring a little bit and to make sure that I've got the ends so they're going to be nice and snug together. As I'm going back and forth, I'm also putting ever so slight pressure of the ends towards each other. So then I should get a really nice join at the top. Sherry said, when you push down from the top on the hoop, I could see you forming it into a heart. Could that be done? You know, I'm not sure that would work. Someone will need to experiment with that, because of what I'm wondering is if you tried to form it at a heart up here, I don't know. It just feels like it might be a tricky adaptation. I would be if anyone wanted to try it, you know, what you might want to do is try it with the craft wire instead of the German style. Because that would be, one, easier to form into a heart. And two, you know, it's inexpensive stuff. So if it didn't quite work, you just cut it off and start again. So there's our silver and blue one. I like it. So again, I'll photograph these. I'll make the second one. My hoop feels slightly not as round as it could be, but I can just fuss with that until it feels good. And I also, something I want to do at the back. Oh, I see. It's not a huge problem. It's just a little problem, but my big jump ring had kind of tucked down underneath that first hook. So I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to tuck these two hooks close to each other. And maybe even twist this one so it is sort of facing the same direction as the other hook. Does that make sense? So they're kind of just a little bit aligned more. I mean, no one's going to be looking at the back, so it doesn't have to be super pretty, but I do want them to sit nicely next to each other. So there, blue one. I think it's nice. So as I said, I'm going to donate a couple of pairs of these to an event tonight. So I do want to make another red pair. And now I have to decide if I'm going to go with the crystal one, go with the crystals, or go with the check glass. And I do like the check glass, so I'm going to stick with that. So this one's going to be closer to the original. It's going to be in gold. Grabbing some of that. Oh, Norma, yep, mixed metals would be cool as well. And even mixed colors on the crystals or on the beads would be cool too. One of the color, when I was down the bead rabbit hole yesterday, I found that I had these, little purple rondelles. And if you're familiar with a certain large crystal company's products, this is this is the 5040s. It's called the Briolette. So it's a rondelle shape, very pretty. And I thought, oh my gosh, the purple would be great, but a pair of these earrings with this size hoop needs a total of 20 of the smaller beads. Now I could change the size of the hoop, but I like this ratio. When I made the first design, this is the ratio. The size felt balanced, felt good to me. You could change the size of the hoop. And if I wanted to use just these little purple rondelles, I would have to, because I only have 19 of them. So I was like, oh, well, I can't do a purple version with that unless I started mixing in something else. So imagine the hoop with a little brighter, maybe larger component bead down at the center next to the this one would be a different color, slightly different color. That would be pretty. And then you could do like just a completely different bead, and that would be pretty as well. So lots of possibilities, the bead rabbit hole. We've all been there. But in this case, I'm going to stick with that golden red because I want to donate one of the red pair for that fundraiser tonight. So let's see. There's got to be an end in here somewhere. There it is. I need a 4-inch piece of that. And again, I'm using, this is the German style, so it's the slightly firmer wire than just a craft wire. And I will need a small jump ring to add to that charm. What you guys, you always use 2 pair of jump rings to open 2 pair of pliers to open a jump ring, right? My favorite combination is chain nose and bent nose. Flat nose work well too, but my favorite combination is chain nose and bent nose. And I lost my bent nose pliers down when we were in Tucson. I lost my bent nose pliers. So I need to get myself a replacement for that. All right. Got my jump ring added to my charm. I'm going to do the wire forming with my little mandrel. And you could, if you wanted your circle to be even more kind of sturdy, you could also work hard in this one, this half hard wire, medium temper wire a little bit. I'm going to make my hook. And add that to our button shank. Now that also the directions that I wrote say, sorry, I got distracted kind of correcting the shape of that little hook. The directions say to cut a 4-inch piece of craft wire. I did not measure, You do want at least 4 inches. And of course, you don't want to be wasteful, so. But you don't have to measure exactly 4 inches. That'll be fine. All right, so there's my one hook on, and then just the stringing. Just do the stringing. Uh-oh, I'm changing my mind, guys. I want to use the crystals instead. That is okay, right? Changing their mind. All right, so I'm just going to start that pattern again. And again, you know, you could use, there's a lot of little spacers you could use. It wouldn't have to necessarily be this pattern that I'm using. You could use a single larger bead in between the color, but then just remember that in order to have some balance, you know, I liked having 3 beads in between the glass beads, because then I was able to use the charm as the center of that sequence at the bottom. So yeah, there's that to think about when you're deciding what kind of beads to use. Oh, I think these crystal ones are going to be really pretty. Okay, where are we at? That's all 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, small spacer, charm, another small spacer. Somebody made the comment further up the thread that these work up so quickly, and they really do. Once you've got your beads figured out and the pattern, they really come up really quickly. I think, how many is that? Okay, I think, is that all of them? No, one more sequence. And if you're worried about the button being upside down, don't, because it's just the way I'm holding it. It's going to be fine when we get it all attached. All right, so I'm going to thread that wire through like I did before and pull it through, not tightly, but just enough where there's some good space on both sides, at both sides, for the button to sit between all those beads. And then I can kind of curve that wire back to make that second hook. And I don't really want to finish that until I've double checked and made sure. Maybe that's a little bit too much room. Maybe I should pull that a tiny bit tighter. Just a little, not very much. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that end off and use the chain nose pliers to pinch it down. And then you can see that, so the hooks are a little bit cattywampus. They're not really lined up well, and that affects how the button sits, because the button wants to sit sideways because my hook here is pointed down. So what I want to do is get my pliers under that hook on the first side. I can, and just turn that hook. Oops, not too much. And then as I'm adjusting this hook, I will make sure they're kind of lined up nicely, and that will keep the button sitting more straight, if that makes sense. And then I also want to, the hoop can easily kind of turn into a, whoops, where's that? This one ended up a little bit tight. Might need, to back that one hook off a little bit. It's really, smart to do all this little fussing before you trim the wire, of course. But I think I can just adjust my hook a little bit to give us a little more room for the button to sit in between the beads. So that's just a good hint. Don't trim this off until you've really done your adjusting to make sure everything's going to sit right. Okay, and then I can add that find a jump ring that's not attached to a bunch of other jump rings. And remember to grab myself an ear wire. Sherry is saying, oh, how about Viva Magenta? Oh, Sherry's got lots of good comments. Viva Magenta is the Pantone color of the year, and she's saying, oh, how about some Viva Magenta and purple? And I agree, that could be a really fun combination. And Sherry's also commenting that it's a great idea to incorporate buttons into an earring. And we do that a lot. Sherry, if you go to our inspiration section of our website, you'll find a lot of earring designs using buttons. It's kind of something that I really enjoy doing. And I'll use shank buttons, and I'll use two-hole buttons. And I've done a lot of fun earring designs using buttons. I just think they make great focals. So I'm loving the way the crystal one looks. See if I can get a little better light on it. It just has a little more sparkle, still has the translucence. Again, if you're interested in using crystal rondelles for this, the item number for this particular company that makes crystals is 5040. It's called a briolette bead. So if you're interested in looking for those, that's what you'll want to. Maybe I'll type that in too. There you go. So yeah, I like the crystal one. That is nice. Now, idea rabbit hole. Work surface is getting a little bit cluttered. But I was having fun looking at some of our other button and charm themes and thinking what else I could do with this idea with the different buttons and charms. So we've got our bee button that would look so cute with one of the bee charms. Got the dragonfly button, which could look great with one of our dragonfly charms. Something interesting about our two dragonfly charms is one has an inline loop, which means that's what we call it, at least in-house, when the loop is the same orientation as the charm. And then this one has what we call an opposed loop. So for this one, you would string it directly onto the wire. You wouldn't have to add a jump ring. You could string it directly on, unless you wanted it to have a little more length, and then you would use jump rings or something to do that. But the dragonflies would be super fun. Oh, I got out some of our shell. We have two shell buttons. We have a sand dollar, and we have like a, oh, what's the name of the shell? I'm drawing a blank completely. There's a particular name for it. But both of those would work for kind of a sea-themed idea. The bees, yes. And then we have like some, nature, foliage, leaves, trees, themed buttons. So those could be really fun too. So I had a little fun kind of going through some of our other button themes. And I might have made a link for you. Did I make a link for you? Oh, just a button link. Scallop shell. Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, clamshell is where the brain kind of goes, but I think actually on the website we call it a scallop shell. And then pulled out our Om button and hung the little Buddha from them. So these could be super, you know, this is a fun idea. You could really have some fun with different themes, you know, to mix it up. And then that would open it up to, you know, a lot of other color possibilities and options for whatever your theme is. Could be really cool. All right. Well, that's what I have for you today, you guys. This design did kind of end up being a little bit of the darling of the designs that we did for the launch. People just were like, oh, that's an awesome design. And we agreed. So I thought I would make a fun demo today. And I really thank you guys for joining me. Sherry says she will be making these earrings. Yes, that's what we like to hear. Totally what we like to hear. So I'm going to switch my camera back just so I can say goodbye. Okay, that's it. Thank you, you guys. You know, take a look at the website and look at all the different themes of charms we have and themes of buttons that we have. And you can, oh, hold on here. Okay. And come up with your own variation. And if you do, you know, really have fun with it. And if you do make anything, feel free, if you post that on any social media, if you tag us, we'll see it. And we love to see what you guys make. I mean, that's our reason for being, is to inspire you guys to make jewelry. So, so thank you. And I will hopefully see you guys next week. And thank you again so much for joining me. And I'll see you next time. Bye.